Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Area 22. The show is 22 Now, where we bring out the good, the bad, and the evil in people. Well, tonight, I have a very special guest on with me, and we're looking around the room to see who it is. But it does happen to be this gentleman, as I say, sitting next to me, okay? The wonderful Stephen May.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Stephen.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad to be here. Anyway, Stephen's on with me tonight because he represents a segment of our society called a millennial, which I don't think I want to tag you as a millennial. I really don't think I want to tag you as a millennial because
I don't think
you're
I'd
not
want to
an
tag
average
me as a
millennial.
human.
What's that?
I don't think I'd want to tag me as a human.
Yeah, you're a human. You're a human.
I'm human.
You might be inhuman at times, but you're a human. Anyway, the tag millennial doesn't fit you per se. It does fit certain people that I have met. It doesn't fit you per se. But you have developed certain talents, which not only do I know you and like you for, but you've developed certain talents, especially in the audio world. You actually put together, wrote, and produced your own song and put it online, which is easy if you just want to make it sound average and nothing great. But you happen to develop a whole bunch of great audio engineering skills in the last year or two since I've actually known you.
I've learned from the best.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And he didn't say it was me, but I thanked him anyway.
It was actually my cat. He when he doesn't like something, he meows. Yes.
Satch meows to it, yeah. So Stephen actually developed a lot of talent much earlier in age than most people do, because I know at 21 I did not have the talent, although I was already immersed in music and in the Dictators and just joining Twisted Sister, and loved being in the studio and did a lot of studio time. I think with the technology and the equipment that's available these days, it's easier to do it, although some of it is more difficult. But I think it's easier just to make it happen, especially if you develop certain basic principles that you need to put a song together and also produce it and put it online.
Well, it's more accessible. I mean, I was helping a friend today who was looking, he wants to get into voice acting and singing and practicing that stuff. And I said, all right, well, here's what I recommend for you just to start out, right? M88TG microphone, phenomenal quality, unparalleled for the price. I love it so much. And then you also have the, I recommend a pair of headphones. It's 240 Pros, really solid low-end pair. You got those headphones for, I think they're $70, $80 nowadays. Outperforms so many things in that price range nowadays, and even back then, considering like.
Completely agree with you. And let me just, a side note here, you're talking about bariodynamic.
Yes.
The bariodynamic microphones and headphones.
Right? I don't want to sound
not
like.
That we're doing a commercial infomercial. We're not. But
I'm not shilling, but I know the company.
The idea is that people are going to want to know what those numbers mean. And the actual model numbers are. But you're absolutely right. This is a great workhorse microphone, and the headphones are incredible. Yeah, absolutely incredible for the price.
And I also recommended him just to get a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 interface. It has preamps equal to the $350 model that I use, and it'll get the job done. And then I recommended him Cubase 10 just came out at the time of us talking about this. And then I also suggested if you want to start cheaper, you can use Audition or you can use Reaper or something like that. But just all that stuff is accessible for you to be able to do whatever you want and create what you want. It's all I see it as is I see Reaper, Cubase, and all that, and then I see that as your canvas. I see the microphone interface as your paintbrushes, and then your mind is what's being created.
And great way of putting it, Stephen. Without a doubt, a great way of putting it. I grew up through the world where everything was very expensive and you had to go to a recording studio to do anything whatsoever. And as technology progressed and I followed along with whether it was a band I was producing in the early days was Seven Dust, of course, and we used some technology when we recorded Seven Dust with all the sound effects and everything. But as we went along, we went more digital and less sound gear, if you want to call it like that, whether it was. And to me, like I explained once before, the weakest point to me being the actual microphone, air, and whatever making the sound, where there's a speaker or a voice or something like that. That's the weakest link to me. And when you go past that, when you get past that link and you use everything right in, except for doing vocals, of course, it makes it easier and you have a bandwidth that's much larger.
Can you imagine if you could just plug an XLR into your throat?
Well, I'm sure they're going to come up with an interface so you just plug it right in, and you go right to the.
You just do vocals.
It'd
through
be
your
really
ID.
good for you, especially the way you sound doing vocals.
Man, I sound heavenly.
Yeah, oh,
I sound
heavenly.
divine.
Yeah, divine, anti-divine is what it's called. But the technology, as I was saying, the technology goes even further because as I learned all of, if you want to call it old school way of doing things with all rack-mounted gear and all analog, which is still great stuff, and you even know that.
Yeah, Tool's doing their new album
Some of
analog.
Oh, without a doubt. All the old analog compressors and EQs, mic preamps, and of course using whether you like a Neve console with their mic pre's or an SSL console. These are all still the best sounding stuff in the world, but they've actually, through all kinds of samples and everything, sample that stuff, and you can get it in whatever rig you're using, whether it's Cubase or Pro Tools or everything. But that's what makes it the complicated side, is now to go to something like Cubase or even Pro Tools, the plugins, there's tens of thousands of plugins, and that makes it very complicated, and it's very easy to overstack something with too many plugins,
Yeah.
and then keep track of them. There's a lot going on there. So, and I came up to the point where you had a console that was bigger than this table, and everything was there in front of you. Now it's all digital and it's on a screen.
Yeah.
So you have to get used to seeing the fact that the screen is only this big, and the console goes
Well, you
in
have
many directions.
they have
Yeah.
solutions for that. Like
Sure.
Slate does this thing called the Raven,
Of
which
course.
I prefer to use drawing tablets. It's cheaper
It's
and it does the
cheaper.
same exact thing.
It does the same thing.
It's
yes.
like $500
No way.
for a drawing tablet the same size versus like $2,000. But you have that, and then you also have control surfaces too.
No
I mean
two
that's
ways
what
about
mixing
it.
boards now are basically for. They're not analog anymore. They're all control surfaces
Well,
for the
control
DAW.
services, sure. But there are some people who still, like I said, like the standard console and the way they sound, the analog stuff, which there's many great consoles out there, but some of the best are Neve and SSL.
Yeah.
And again, we're not doing an infomercial
Yeah.
to sell this stuff. But
By now.
this is going through my experiences and all the time that I've been recording and being in studios. But what you've done, and I sat back, and you did ask me questions about various things. But I sat back and witnessed every stage that you went through. And when you asked me certain things, I'm sure you went back and experimented because I never really commented on it. But every time you got to the next step, I heard everything smoother and much more coherent. It all sounded like it was coming from the same point. You didn't sound like a bunch of tracks just thrown in together. So, and then the final result, which is now on the internet, which people can hear, which we'll tell them all about it in a minute, was as far as you had gotten with it. And I don't know if you were satisfied with it or you just thought you had to put it out. But again, in my opinion, fantastic.
Thank you. Actually, when I was making it, when you get crippling self-doubt as a
Sure.
musician,
Sure.
I was getting a really bad case of that. And whenever I have that kind of feeling, I just need to create. I need to create something, and I had that song. It was nearing completion. All I had to do was just add some distortion to the vocals, do some EQ, leveling out, bus compression, that kind of stuff. And then I wanted to. It was October 29th, and I said, I'm in the mastering stage. This is nearly done mastering. It's really smooth. I have my limiting, my gain reduction, everything. I'm like, I can gear this for a Halloween release. I mean, how cool would that be? My first track to be released on Halloween.
It sounds like it would be a Halloween track, too.
Never. It's too heavenly. It would be a Christmas track.
But going back to the beginning, there are certain principles that you have to establish and keep with, certain parameters that you have to stay with in recording. You need to have all your gain structure in the right place. You don't want anything mismatched as far as gain. You want to make sure that your individual compression doesn't hurt your overall stereo left and right compression. You want to make sure that there's not something that you may EQ doesn't take it beyond the point where you eat up too much sound space. And this day and age, they call it bandwidth.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you did, which in the beginning, your track was sonically all over the place.
Because I use when I write, since I'm a solo musician, I use a DAW as my writing tool. Because it's very hard to have a drummer perform a track for you when you don't have a drummer there. So
Right.
what always happens is I use my DAW, I sample out my drums, and I get that going, and then I'm like, okay, well let me hear how this riff goes with it. Then I put the riff down, and then I say, all right, well let me do some lead elements onto it. I did that, and I'm hearing how it's all starting to piece together. Then I did some bass, and then I finally did some vocals. I'm like, all right, this is how it's sounding right now. This is how it sounded if a full band was playing this right now. So I said, let me just keep moving forward. And then from when I wrote my first track, when I first started getting my hands on Cubase, to now, just it's phenomenal. It's just the ability to create everything that easily is great.
Sure. Well, you're also, and we'll get back a little bit, go back to what you were talking about, the fact that you didn't use acoustic drums, you used the drum machine.
Yes, because that's the sound I was going for.
Right, exactly. But
there's acoustics in it.
Just think if you had to go someplace to record acoustic drums.
Yes, well, first I would need a drummer.
You need a drummer,
yeah.
but you need a studio, and you need a lot of microphones and a lot of equipment to get that done. So the fact that you use a drum machine, not that I suggest getting rid of drummers and using drum machines, but for your instance, for what you wanted to get done, the job that you needed to accomplish, a drum machine was perfect for it because you actually wrote the drum parts.
Yeah.
You decided what they were going to sound like, and you wrote the drum parts.
They were very simple drum parts, and they were just something to accentuate the tone, just kind of a groove, you know?
Sure.
Simple 4/4 time with the little triplet in there somewhere. And that's kind of, that's what I was going for. And when I was writing it, I just thought, you know what, I want these drums to sound very, like, industrial, like you're in a factory, right? So I took my microphone, my trusty M88. I went into the laundry room right next door to where my studio is, and I was just banging on the washing machine. And I was recording, and I recorded at multiple velocities too. I did like really hard hits and really soft hits, just to kind of get that variable in there.
And lots of things go on. I mean, you realized what took a lot of people a long time to realize. Like you go back and you listen to a lot of classic rock hits or pop hits or something like Phil Collins. What was his big hit? In the Air Tonight.
Yeah.
In the Air Tonight. And that huge drum sound that comes in towards the end of the song, as from what I understand, was a mistake.
Yeah.
They left the talkback mic on in the studio and recorded the drums, and they got that huge, like in a factory sound to them, which was great. And what I'm sure that they went and mixed it and did things with it. But what a great sound! And if they didn't do that, if that really didn't happen, I know other people that did do that and experimented with sounds just getting larger and didn't use the actual too much outboard gear to get the job done. But where there's a will, there's a way. But I have to say that you progressed quite nicely because I heard the song. I heard it when you just started recording it. I heard it when you smoothed things out and added some more stuff, when you put bass guitar in it and some guitar. And then I heard it before you finished the vocals.
Yeah.
Give me a sample of that. And then I heard it when it was done. And what a great lesson plan for someone who wants to learn how to do this. It really is. I mean, you could actually share your experience with it to a young person, especially a young person who's just starting out in the music industry and is a singer-songwriter who wants to do music like that. Your ideas really came forth amazingly.
Well, it all started, I used to be a musician out here since I was like 16. That's when I really started feeling comfortable enough to jam, and just no one had the vision that I wanted. And I just wanted to write a concept album, so I started on that. But I think the fact that I was sitting there and creating it, and I live by the philosophy, because I use Photoshop so much and because I see our CEO do this so many times, is that you have let's say you're making logo final, and then logo final copy, logo final, this is the real one. It just, your names stack up. So then what I decided to do is I said, let me streamline this, okay? So I have my first version that I made, and then I just say V1, V2, V3, and I don't bounce out a version until I feel it's a full day of work where it's just a big boost.
Sure.
And what I do with that version is I go listen to it on my headphones, I listen to it on my crappy earbuds, on my car, I listen to it on my speakers, everywhere while I'm going around. I just listen to what I hear that I don't like, and then I go back home and fix it.
What a great idea, because every single thing that I work on in the studio, whether it's Twisted Sister, my own material, another band's, I definitely sample it in a lot of places. Important to, I mean, what do most people listen to music on these days?
Apple
their
earbuds.
Right, Apple earbuds.
Through their iPad.
Their phones, iPad, computer speakers are huge. Most people that I know listen to regular stereos, but most young people don't care about a stereo. I know you do.
I was laughing because I told my friend about my track coming on. He was excited. I wanted to send it to him early, but he has an iPhone, so I couldn't get him the links because you can't download files on iPhones.
Right, on iPhones.
But I let him listen to it when it came out. I said, all right, it's out today. It's Halloween. Happy Halloween. Enjoy the track. Let me know what you think. And he said, oh, I love it, right? But then he went to show it to his friends on Snapchat. So he recorded it with his phone phone off of his laptop speakers playing through YouTube.
Yeah.
And I just felt my body shake from
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
you understand
Yeah.
bandwidth and the size.
Well, it's not
of
even that.
everything.
It's that when you sit for hours and you're mixing something and then
Sure.
you like hear it somewhere else where it's just not the fidelity that you expect, you're like, what is
Well,
this?
that's really horrible fidelity.
Yeah.
You know, that's not a very good way of, especially in this day and age of technology, of copying a song.
Well,
you know, for
fortunate-
the sonic part of it.
The closest I managed to get to is if I either played it off my monitors and recorded it on my phone's microphone, which is a
Right,
really good microphone,
right.
is actually deemed that. Or what I do is I go on Instagram stories. What you can do is you can put Spotify stuff in there.
Yes, you can.
And since my song's on Spotify, I just put it on there. But then you hear the artifacts, and then like,
Yeah, it gets to you, right?
yeah.
It gets to you.
But it's good enough for people to get a taste and see if and maybe I'll like this, and they give it a listen.
Do you mind talking about specifics of your song?
Slipping from the fate now cold, the burning cards have been played. Now it's time to fold. Nowhere left to hide. Raging tower to the sun. Down the belief is deep. Fading away from me. Burning bright to be set free. Holding for to transform my pride. Reaching hopes to the buried swine.
What I found very interesting, and I definitely think was one of the best things you did, is what you did with your vocals. The
Which
delivery
part?
of the vocal was great.
Okay.
All right. But the effects, you really took time to decide what and where you were putting everything on.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm hearing it. I'm hearing compression, some limiting, and I'm hearing some interesting distortion.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do for distortion?
All right, so which part are we talking about? The harshies,
The harshies.
the harshies. Okay.
Harshies.
For the harshies, the screams. What I did, because I used it when I wrote the song. I had this artist in my mind when I was thinking about it. They're a band called Motionless in White, and one thing that I always liked was the production of their first album. Their screams had so much weight to it, and the song is very much the opposite of a normal song. With a normal song, you have the really harsh verses and then the soft releasing choruses. With the verses, I wanted to build tension. That was kind of my goal. So I had just that Manson style talking. And then when I got to the chorus, what I did is I did a lot of different vocal styles to get that harshness. So I did something called a tunnel throat high, which
Right.
is produced by creating a vacuum in your mouth and then just exhaling everything, which our engineer heard me give an example of when we were doing mic samples. But when I was doing so I did that, and then I went from a mid to a high scream, and then I was just going full force mids, and I was just channeling my deeper gut. And on top of that, what I did is I used some compression, I used gain reduction and limiting, I used parallel distortion with it. For some parts, what I did is I did some treble tracking to give it a little bit of beef.
Okay, sure.
For most of it was double tracked. And I tried to make it so that they weren't overstaying their welcome. I did some EQ and some de-essing, and I just chopped it up because on that song I didn't have access to this microphone the entire time I was doing it, so I had to use a microphone that's typically used by streamers called the Blue Yeti.
Yes, of course.
And I luckily had an XLR out, so I was able to get some clarity from that. But it's so bright, that microphone. That's why I like this. This is much more accurate to my voice.
Sure.
I put this pop filter on. I don't need anything else. I could just hold it and I could get into it. Similar to the SM7B. But this I think has better clarity. But anyway, when I was using the Blue Yeti, it just gave my voice so much treble, and I just had to roll it off, and then I had to get some distortion to bring it back to the low end a little bit.
Right, of course.
And then what I also did is I put underneath it to make it really chaotic. I put static. I put stereo static effects under there.
I heard something there.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. That is a great idea for that kind of white noise background.
Because I wanted it to be messy. I wanted it to be unclean, and I wanted it to feel filthy. And one thing my brother said, which he didn't like, is he said that he couldn't distinguish the parts. And I said, well, that's kind of the point.
Sure.
I want you to feel like you're getting your head rattled at for that
Right.
chorus, and then it just smooths back out.
Sure, absolutely.
And it's just kind of like, was that a dream? Because like that song was written in the story. I don't want to talk too much about it until I finish the next track. But in the story, it's when this character has the character's revelation of this is what's going on right now. This is the world that I'm living in. So I needed to have that effect to it.
Right, of course, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go back to something that I get questioned on often, especially in more of a technical publications. When TS got back together again and we decided we were going to keep everything in-house, that's when I got to produce all the Twisted Sister stuff.
And
whether
it
it
sounds
was a live-
sonically great.
Whether it was a live album, whether it was a studio album, anything. But the first thing we did back in the early 2000s is we recorded Stay Hungry, and we called it Still Hungry.
Yeah.
Everybody is very familiar with Stay Hungry from the 80s, from 83, 84, and the way it sounded. Tom Werman, great producer, great guy. He did a superb job on the original. However, when we got back together, we wanted it to have a more modern sound and more modern feel to it. So in no way were we trying to insult the original album.
Yeah.
With Tom Werman worked so
Just trying
hard
to
on.
update it.
And our engineer, Jeff Workman. But yeah, we were updating it, and we wanted to have something new to put out. And we also had bonus tracks on it. But it was interesting because that album, CD, whatever you want to call it, was originally recorded at a studio called Pi Studios up in Glen Cove.
Oh.
Great studio. Some of the best analog equipment in the world.
History was made right by us.
Yeah, have you ever been there?
No, I haven't. Actually,
unfortunately, at this point, he's dismantling it and moving it to L.A. But maybe I'll give him a call and we'll get over there before he takes it all apart.
Hopefully.
Because he had the original equipment from the original RCA studios above Radio City Music Hall in Manhattan. And that is some of the classic equipment in the world. The EQs, the compressors, the limiters, all of the outboard gear that was in that studio, he virtually got it at an auction, and has multitudes of other stuff. But it was the first time where I actually used digital and audio and analog together. The board was analog. We did record to Pro Tools, of course, all digital. I wasn't used to not seeing 2-inch tape turning, right?
Yeah.
To record. So that was the medium, and that was the first time that I really produced something. I had worked with it many times. So it was very strange getting used to the fact that I didn't have a tape recorder turning, no tape turning, And so we recorded to Pro Tools and did the whole thing, and then we went and mixed, of course, in the whole digital format. But the important part was I was going to say is, in the studio recording guitars and bass, there was analog drums, of course, but we used amps. We used Marshall amps, and I had a couple of small bass amps that I used to mic to get some grit and things like that. So it was all analog. There was microphones and air and a source of sound. We got through that album. I thought it came out great. We were all happy with it. I don't know if you've heard it.
I have.
Still Hungry.
Yeah.
Completely eons of difference between that and Stay Hungry. And then we came up to time when we decided to do the Twisted Christmas album.
Ooh.
And
that was nuts.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great production.
Yeah.
If I should say so myself. But a lot of lessons learned between that, because of all the other studio work I had done on a multitude of other tracks for people, and Twisted stuff. Deciding to do the Twisted CD was really interesting because, as you know, the Christmas songs, the music can be quite complicated and have a lot of different types of chord structures in it. Augmented chords, ninths, sevenths, diminished, minors. So we had to sit there, and I give a lot of credit to Eddie Ojeda because he straightened them all out and turned them into rock chords.
Oh, wow.
He did a lot of that work, and he did an amazing job on it. And then we had to arrange the songs into 3.5, 4-minute songs to make it all accessible and make them all hard rock at least. So it was great. But the point I'm getting to is the fact that Eddie came to me, and was my first real hardcore experience with not using amplifiers. Eddie came to me with a Line 6 pod with a guitar sound, and he said, when we were ready to record guitars, I had a bunch of Marshall cabinets and all of the classic Twisted gear there, which were all old Marshalls, great sounding stuff. He said, can we try this first before you do that? He goes, I guarantee you will just use this. And a pod, you don't need an amplifier to record. So we set it up and we tried it, and I immediately liked it. But I said, I have to have something to go against. So just do me a favor. Plug into this Marshall and play. And it sounded great. But I'll tell you what, when you have a Marshall cabinet, when you have a source point, and you have to worry about phasing, keeping microphones in the same phase, and you worry about all the other noises around, I'll tell you what, Eddie Ojeda did an amazing job.
Yeah.
So we went with his pod tone, if you want to call it that, and used no amplifier for a guitar. on that CD. They were talking about Twisted Christmas. And at that point, I was given a bass pod also by Line 6. And when it came time to do bass, I did the same thing. I experimented with that and a few other things, another preamp from Tech 21. And it worked out that I never used an amp on that album either.
Wow.
So that is all bass tone at line level.
Yeah, that's
Line level into the board. And I had 4 channels of bass.
That's incredible.
Yeah, 4 channels of bass, and never walked into the live room in the studio at all to adjust anything. We did record acoustic drums though. You know,
Yeah.
AJ's drums, acoustic.
Yeah,
there are
that's
no
something you
sample
can't
drums.
compare.
Yeah, there's no sample drums and there's no drum machine on that on any of those CDs or those albums. But that was a huge step for me to get away from an amplifier. It really was. It was a tremendous step getting away from an amplifier. And you've basically done that same thing.
I guess. I mean, well, first thing is that one thing I noticed a lot of people doing, because I used a video of a professional mix for reference at points.
Right.
Just because, you want to see what the pros are doing, so this way you can kind of get that feel. And one thing I saw them do is they took acoustic drums and they did some parallel sampling with some sample packs. And honestly, it sounded incredible.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. We've done that before, too.
Yeah, but the acoustic drums is never something you can match. And even nowadays, you have people don't use the pods as much. Now the two big ones are the Fractal Axe FX 3. And the Line 6 Helix.
Yeah, and the Kempner. There's a lot. There's a lot
Kempner
of them
too.
out
But
there.
the Line 6 Helix and the Fractal effects. What's good about those is I see top of the line musicians using. I see like Sinister Gates from Avenged Sevenfold using it. And I just see like some huge people, and you can also run pedals through it too, so you can still get your analog sound from it.
Yeah, they're tremendous. They're just not accessible to the average person.
No, they're not. But
they're very expensive.
So then, well, that brings me to my next thing. But first thing is that what's so good about them is you can use them live, and you can run it through your computer, and you can have MIDI things to automatically change the tones for you. So this way, if you're approaching a song that requires a completely different tone, you don't have to just stomp on every pedal in like a matter of a second.
Well, you can. Now you have MIDI. You can control anything you want that's MIDI controllable.
Exactly.
And that's very important.
And I used I used the digital version of Line 6 Helix, and I also blended it with Native Instruments Guitar Rig 5.
Sure.
And you can just use those, and you can plug your computer and have it in the interface and out to the house sound and get that same thing.
Right.
It won't be as easy, obviously.
No.
But you still have that accessibility. And if I play live shows, I have an amp still that I can use. But I'm primarily focusing on getting backing musicians and being vocals.
Right, of course.
So.
But still, the digital side of it is amazing because in the early days, when we went to do a mix, there was no automation.
Yeah.
So you had 4 or 5 different people in the studio with you, and you would take masking tape and put it next to the fader and put different levels and numbers on it.
Yeah.
So at this point, you knew to move the fader to here and then back down. So we would have a lot of people with their hands on the console.
Yeah.
It would look like a player piano with fingers moving everything around. So when automation came, all you did is program it, and you didn't have to take a shot at the mix 15, 20 times.
Yeah.
You just would go through the whole thing till you figured out your levels, and then that was the final mix. And that was important. But what you were saying, automation has come to the average musician because you can, if everything's MIDI controllable, you can now have everything automate. Your sounds change automatically, and you don't have to hit a stomp box.
I was actually blown away. I saw this video of someone talking about their live gear, and what blew me away is you, of all people, know how much lighting people suck at points. Mark hates lighting people. That's one thing I learned from the day when I met him.
Don't be a lighting director around me.
You're a lighting director around Mark, he will eat you alive. But when I saw this guy do is he connected he had all in his DAW, he was using Reaper, and then he had lighting change instructions with the note.
Sure.
And then he had that output to a box which then plugged into the house lights.
Of
so
course.
that all didn't happen for them. They didn't have to deal with any lighting guys, and they didn't have to learn the songs.
Sure, absolutely.
It was just all done by him.
Well, people, local bands, doing that with their PAs also.
Yeah.
They're programming the songs into the PA, and all you got to do is hit the switch and start it, and turn it on, or you hit the stomp box that sets up that MIDI program, and you're ready to go, which is fantastic. It really is. It's fantastic. So, but which is great. And getting back to some of the outboard gear that I use when I recorded bass. I can't tell you how many times people would ask me about this stuff. But again, the pod, which gave me a great sound, which a lot of people don't realize it, but the pod was one of the early ones that sampled an acoustic 360 bass amp.
Wow.
Yeah, which is the classic bass amp that Jocko used and John Paul Jones and
Does it sound good?
everybody. And it sounds amazing. I still use that setting to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just it adds that to it, that breath, that pushing like a lot of air. So great stuff, but I love where it has gone to. It's all digital, not live though. I still like all the analog stuff for live. I really do. I like what the live sound comes out like. But getting back to your track, I have to compliment you for the way it came out.
Thank you.
I really do.
I appreciate that.
You took a short period of time and became an expert in your own field.
I wouldn't say it's an expert. I still hear some glaring flaws.
You hear the flaws, but the average person, like I always told you, you may sit there and hem and haw over the smallest thing that the audience won't hear and they won't know the difference. Get past it, move on, and and leave it the way it is.
Well, there's like some flaws that I hear that are very like glaring to me anyway. It's not like simple things like some parts where vocals don't align properly and stuff like that. Those things.
You can always do better on certain things, but
it's going to be remixed for the final
release. When you produce,
release.
you have to realize the fact that you get to a point where it's just time to move on, and no one is going to know. And
that's exactly when I said that. Is I think I told you this before, but when I was sitting with the song and I was thinking, listen, I know that these are the steps you need to do for mastering, but I was looking for problems that weren't there. That's the number one thing is that I was sitting there and I was looking for I need to put a compression on this, but I'm like, I already used bus compression. This would just kind of get in the way, and I'm looking for things to clip when they weren't, and looking for the right RMS when I was already hitting it, and I was worrying about things, and then I was just like, you know what, I got to stop this. I'm looking for issues that aren't there. I'm done. I'm releasing this. It's over.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm putting it aside and I'm moving on. And then I started another track, which now I'm working on. And that's sounding like the drums that you said they sound like cannons.
They do.
But
they sound like cannons.
That's the next track that I'm working on. And a lot of people like the last track that I did. I think
you sampled the cannon off of AC/DC's For Those About to Rock.
Jesus.
Right? Those are big cannons.
No, I layered a lot of drums to get that.
Of course, I know.
A lot of layers. I think I did about 6 drums for just those hits.
That's a lot.
So when I did the last track, a lot of people just kind of liked the feel of it, and they liked the emotions that it put them through. Even people who didn't like the genres, so they were all saying you should make another one of these. We like the style. The entire album was going to be like an acoustic sound. It was going to have a more organic metal sound to it,
right.
But everyone loved that industrial feel.
Oh yeah.
So then I said, all right, I'll go back to that industrial feel that people liked so much. I mean, I had some great things at my fingertips and I'm able to use, and I'm just really excited to put it through its paces.
Well, it worked. It's on the internet, and you are actually getting great feedback about the product.
Yeah.
Great feedback.
Yeah, the people that listen liked it. So.
Yeah, they absolutely like it. It's great. It must be a great feeling for you.
It's a very good feeling. I think I expected much more hate than I got. I expect
hate.
Yeah, when you release a song, you're always just you have you have your self-doubt, your crippling self-doubt hitting at you. You're like, what if this isn't good enough? What if this doesn't reach people's standards? And honestly, like there was some people who were like, this isn't for me. But a lot of people who listened to it seemed to really enjoy the sound and the feeling that it gave them. And when I was playing for someone, I remember one of my closest friends, which I was laughing about, I was sitting here at the office. This was on Halloween, which is a Wednesday, and I'm engineering on Wednesdays. So we were rebroadcasting one of our shows, and I was just sitting here, and my friend calls me. I'm like, I wonder what this is. I hope it's not an emergency. And I answer, and he's like, you made this? And I'm like, what? He's like, this song, you made this song? And I'm like, yeah, I did.
Right.
And then he says, this just went from like, hey, let's just have something super soft to just full on industrialist. It sounded like Man's into industrialist. I'm like, thank you, Industrial Sphere Factory. But
sure, of course.
I'm just like, that was an awesome feeling. That made my day for me. And then I went to a Halloween get-together that night. It wasn't really a party. It was like a get-together with just a few friends. And I played it on the speaker. I'm like, what do you guys think? And then 2 people at that party bought it on the spot.
Well, that's great.
Because
Fantastic.
Because I used this distribution service called DistroKid, and that got me on night of release on iTunes, Apple Music, and Google Play Music, and YouTube. And after that, it came out the next day. Everything else. But but it was out on iTunes, and someone said, "Are you on iTunes?" And I said, "Yeah, coincidentally. Glad you asked about that platform." And then they bought it, so it was great.
It makes you feel good, right?
It does, because I don't make music to make money. I make music to make art.
Sure.
And that's the way it should be done. I think if you make music to make a living off of it, then that's where the passion is lost.
Yeah, it gets some. I mean, I did both. I love music. It's in my blood. whether it was an old club band I was in, the Dictators, Blackfoot, of course Twisted Sister, and Joe Rock and the All Stars, and of course my own project coming up in the very near future.
Yeah.
I love music and I do it for the love of it, but I also was able to make it into a living.
Yeah, that's because the thing is, it stemmed from your love.
Which I really appreciate, because most people don't get that chance. I got that chance, and it worked. So I certainly appreciate that. I'm still elated. I drive around, and all of a sudden I hear, we're not going to take it on the radio.
Yeah.
I want to rock. Or when you get to some of the more esoteric radio stations that might play Burning Hell or Can't Stop Rock and Roll, it still feels great that I know that I had gotten that far in life to have a song that I helped put together and produce, and it's on the radio.
Yeah, it's got to be a wonderful feeling.
It's a great feeling. Plus, it's a good thing for the wallet. Makes the wallet larger, which I can't say no to.
Yeah.
But no, I really do appreciate the fact that I was able to come up through the world and live on making a living off of music. It's an amazing feeling, and I wish it was more accessible to people these days. As we've discussed before, that machine is really non-existent in that way. But bands are making their own ways of getting through and cutting through and getting their music out there and becoming popular with it, and that's real important. The arts, music, it's all extremely important because it makes us feel good. I know that when I have a rough day and I'm driving home, or I'm at home, or I'm driving home, I slam something in that I really love to listen to.
Yeah.
And it makes me forget about all the crap that went on that day in my life. It makes me feel good. Sometimes it makes me drive fast. Some of the stuff I listen to, but and there's all types of music. I'm not just saying anything in any one genre. It could be just about anything. But as long as it takes me someplace that I really like, and it moves me away, and I think that's what music really does.
Exactly.
Your song is going to have an effect on people, and the ultimate effect is the fact that it makes you forget what's wrong in your life right there at the moment. And I do believe that everything that especially Twisted Sister did, was we did that for people, because that's what we always got. That's the feedback we always got from the fans. Seeing us live, hearing the music, it made my life feel better. It got me through some of the worst times, and that is even more important. It makes you feel even better, when someone is literally, we've had fans on their deathbed and who came back and just said, your song, your music got me through the worst times of my life. And how do you can't give that to someone as a gift. It's something that they heard and they loved, and it's really the gratification from that is unmeasurable. You can't measure it.
No,
You really
definitely.
can't.
And even I still had a laugh when I saw Ready Player One when it came out, and I heard your song playing it.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm just like, wow. And then immediately afterwards, they played Blue Monday by Origin. Like, oh boy.
It's funny because when I went to see Ready Player One, I forgot that the song was in it, and I went because my younger niece wanted to see it. She's a gamer. She wanted to see the movie.
For all the
I
epic
went.
gamers out there.
What's that?
For all those epic gamers out there.
For those epic gamers out there. So when the company that produced the movie contacted us to do a licensing deal, the song, JJ French did the deal, and then he called me and said, you have to talk to these people, because this is my job in the band, and give them the stems or whatever they knew for the movie. And I said, as long as you tell me the deal's done, send me the information. A couple of weeks later, he sent me the information. I talked to them and gave them the stems they needed and everything, and the next thing I know, it came out in a movie. But we do that often. We do a lot of licensing deals for a whole bunch of our songs. But like I said, it was my niece was home from school, and she wanted to go see the movie, and so my brother-in-law, my niece, and myself, and this guy's yawning over here.
I'm sorry, my eyes dry. I have contacts.
But
What?
anyway, we went and saw the movie.
Oh, the engineer's mad at me.
I
I'm
know,
sorry.
the engineer. Don't listen to the engineer.
There's no engineer there.
So I'm just trying to relate what happened in the movie. I forgot all about it, that the song was in the movie, because we do a lot of licensing deals. We really do. And the song shows up all over the place, all over the world.
That's really interesting.
The song came on, and my niece and my brother-in-law was clapping, and I'm like, I forgot I did this. I really forgot that I sent them the music for We're Not Gonna Take It in Ready Player One.
That's really interesting.
So the credits at the end of the movie too.
Yeah, when they reach, it's really interesting how they reach out to you like that with all that stuff. I know even when I saw you guys in SpongeBob, that's when I got my first exposure to TS. When I was a kid and I saw the SpongeBob movie, and it was instead of I Want to Rock, it was Goofy Goober Rock.
Goofy Goober Rock. They asked if they could change the lyrics and of course.
I said, like, there's no way in hell that these TV producers were able to make a song this good and this catchy with this much intricacy. And then I looked into it, and I was watching Fuse the next day, and they were playing some stuff from the 80s, 70s.
Right.
And then I heard the song come on. I'm like,
Wanna Rock.
wait a second.
That's where it came from.
Wait a second.
A lot of people questioned that one. Where did they get that from?
And then I see a bunch of dudes coming out in wigs and makeup and everything, and they weren't wigs for everyone. It wasn't for anyone, was it?
No, those days no wigs.
That was all their hair.
Real hair.
But I thought it was wigs when I was younger.
No, it wasn't.
But then I see them all coming out in makeup and long hair, and I'm just like, and all the flamboyant outfits, like, yikes. 'Cause, like, the music that I listened to when I was younger, my go-to music was like Atreyu and Avenged Sevenfold, maybe some Tool, Green Day. They didn't dress normal, but they dressed like a more conservative
Let me
style.
tell you something. When Avenged Sevenfold came out with their first album,
Yeah.
and I didn't know who it was, and I was driving, and I want to say I was somewhere in the Midwest, and Bat Country came on.
Oh, that's their third album.
That's their third album.
Third
Right?
album,
I'm sorry, their
yes.
third album. My mistake. Anyway, when that came on, I didn't know who it was, but I said, whoever this is unbelievable, is amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember calling D Snyder, just after that song, and he goes, who is it? And I mentioned Avenged Sevenfold. He goes, I never heard of him. I said, you better, because this is amazing.
Yeah.
And he called me back about 20 minutes later and said, I got it. You're absolutely right. An incredible band. That song is amazing. I mean, it's definitely world-class song.
No, I was like,
They did.
I remember that was the first song I think. No, I heard I was a fan of them for a while, but I remember when that song came out, I'm like, this is a really interesting song. 'Cause before that, they were more metal focused, and then leaned more towards like the hard metal, where it's kind of like the Metallica style. But they still had their own flair, and that was incredible. And their like guitarist is immense. I think he was ranked number 87 in the world.
Incredible song, incredible band. Everything they've done.
And when I first heard the song, I was still in elementary school, so I'm sitting there. My mom wasn't too pleased with me sitting there and watching the music video and seeing a bunch of girls with the long tongues just slapping tongues together with the tails and everything and the bikinis. Or you see like in the video when their guitarist is popping out a solo, and then you see a really an overweight person from the parade just doing flossing with something, and I'm just like, this is I thought this was normal at a point. I mean, I used to watch Fuse religiously because of that music video.
And now look at this guy. Are you
and
kidding
I'm
me?
perfectly normal.
Yeah, there's nothing
But I remember
normal about him.
that when I saw that video, I remember them and Green Day were also a big one for me. I'm like, this is something I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Just seeing their guitarists just have a blast with it. And I remember I was obsessed with the band. I had posters all over my wall. I was in elementary school, mind you, 3rd grade. But I had their posters all over my wall. I used to watch all their music. I knew all their lyrics. I was trying to write lyrics after them. I wanted to name a band back then, but I had no friends because all my friends were like still shitting in diapers. But I wanted to call my band Skull and Crossbones.
Skull and Crossbones. That's an original one, right?
And I remember I was incorporating about shooting things with bazookas when I was younger. I'm like,
funny.
I wanted to just write something dark, and I didn't know how to. I didn't have the.
how to.
I remember I wrote like, I was just weird back then, man. But I remember when I saw
You're
that.
weird now.
Oh, never. But when I saw that video, it just changed me. And I listened to the album,
Sure.
and the album is, I don't know if you've listened to the full album, but the album is weird. So the first half of the album is really thrashy, right? It's really thrashy, that Metallica kind of sound. And then the second half of the album is very progressive. So the first album, 5-minute song length, maybe 6 pushing it. Second half, 8 minutes, like the shortest. And then it goes out to like 11 minutes long. And there's like 4 or 5 tracks like that. And I'm listening to this, and this is why I'm able to tolerate more progressive music, because I'm just sitting there, I'm like, wow, they created a world with this. This is immense. And then just hearing that, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be.
Great stuff.
Just look at myself in the mirror and just like mouth over the vocals and the music and everything.
I mean, it was different for me growing up, but the same feeling.
Yeah.
You know, when I heard Mountain and Cream and Jimi Hendrix and Cactus, I said, this is what I want to do. And I was already playing at that point because my inspiration was 50s music.
Yeah.
That's what was really big, even though it was in the 60s that I actually latched onto music.
50s music is still great.
Yeah,
and I love
went
swing.
right from
It
that.
don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
You heard it here first on Area 22 Productions. This is totally an original idea.
But
Don't look that up.
Yeah, don't look that up. Yeah, don't look that up. But yeah, it's The music means a lot of different things for people, but it certainly helps us all get through life when we have problems and we have a bad day, even when we have a good day. Because once I'm done for the day and I'm heading in, the music's on.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is, it's on. Whether it's Van Halen, AC/DC,
Crank to 11 with the windows down.
exactly.
Yeah.
Whether it's any one of those bands or something modern, whether it's Avenged Sevenfold or Winery Dogs.
Yeah.
You know, I listen to it all, and I certainly have my favorite. But it comes on if it's moving, if it's got groove to it, and it's got big ones like this, then it goes, and that's what I listen to.
I still won't forget this. When I was visiting my friend out in Suffolk County, he lives in Middle Island, and I was driving around with him. We were taking the back roads back to his house, and I was listening to this band called the Deer Hunter, DEAR. There is no animals involved. It is as in, dearest.
Right.
I just want to get that clear. There's two bands like that. This is the right one. This one you should be listening to. Anyway, I was blasting them, and they have on one of their albums a very orchestral sound and kind of like an indie rock, indie prog orchestral sound to it. And I was rolling down the windows. I just blast all my music. That's just what I do, whether it's acoustic or rock or metal or whatever. And I was just happening to be blasting that. And then he was in the middle of doing falsettos. And I just see the car next to me just go like, just look at me like that. Just give me like a really disgusting
Right,
look.
what are they listening to?
Yeah, and then I
course.
look over to them. I roll down my other window and I start singing that on top of my lungs, and I drive past them. It's just
He got them.
just going.
He showed them.
Just going in traffic. When you're in traffic, man, you got to do something to keep yourself from being bored.
Oh,
For
without
me,
a
it's
doubt.
annoying every other driver around me.
I just drive fast. I'm not bored.
Through
Just drive
traffic?
real fast. Yeah, go right around it.
I don't know. Traffic from the city pretty.
Yeah,
it's
that's
pretty,
that's tough. Anyway,
yeah.
we don't want to talk about breaking
Leap the
vehicle and
cars.
traffic laws at all. We don't want to discuss that. But
just pick up the cars and run over traffic.
in any case, Stephen, I want to thank you for spending some time with me on the air right now.
Thanks so much for having me.
It went great. Tell everybody where they can hear your song, your music.
All right, so the band name I'm going under is not really a band, but it's called Drakontas, Drakontas.
Spelling bee.
Yes. And the song is called Baptism of Earth.
What does that mean, Drakontas?
Drakontas. So it started off as a joke with my friends when I was younger. This is when the Shrek joke was very prevalent. And I said, man, we should call our band Ogre. I'm like, oh, that's taken. We should call it Ogre in a different language. So I was just translating through other languages on Google Translate. And I came across Greek. And I know it's not pronounced like that in the slightest. But I just read it. I'm like, that's a very interesting name. And I remember I put it in my back pocket. And then now, 5 years later, I'm using it. And
Interesting.
It's just something that, like, whenever I tell someone, like, I have no idea what it means, but I love it. And then the song is Baptism of Earth. You can stream it on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Google Play, your mother's toaster, your microwave, whatever you're feeling that day. You can get
Whatever
it
you want to sample it on.
Yeah.
That's very good. Anyway, Stephen, thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Getting some explanations down here and giving me an example of what a modern day millennial is.
I am not that.
No, you are definitely not. So, but I'm saying it anyway. But I appreciate it.
Thank you
all
so
right?
much.
The network is Area 22. The show is 22 Now. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.